Chad Larson. Thanks for joining me in another episode of Keep It Real. So on my little hike jog here today, I did a little 3-minute workout. And what I did in 3 minutes was I did box jumps, or actually there's a bench, so I did 10 bench jumps, and then I did 10 burpees, and I alternated 10, 10, 10 for 3 minutes. That's a really good little workout. So a lot of the patients I treat are entrepreneurs, executives, or athletes, and a lot of them are like 2 out of the 3 of those categories. And so time is a crucial element, and oftentimes they're trying to cram a lot of stuff into a short amount of time. And so having a quick little workout like that is a great way to work your muscles, get your cardiovascular system going, get your heart rate going, get your respiratory system going, and it's a very, very short period of time. So what I mostly want to talk with you today is the word assimilation. So assimilation is definitely not a sexy word, but what assimilation does for our body is pretty amazing. In fact, without the proper amount of assimilation, then that would lead to disease and sickness. And so what I mean by assimilation is when we consume nutrients like macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and micronutrients like vitamins and minerals, those things have to be absorbed, and then they have to be assimilated into your cells, like your brain cells. So when you oxygenate from exercise or from deep breathing, all that oxygen floods all of our cells. We have like 10 trillion cells in our body, and all those cells require oxygen, because oxygen is an essential component to making the fuel in our cells called ATP. And so without proper oxygenation, the body just doesn't work right. And so you get oxygenation, you get all these nutrients getting into all your cells, your eye cells, your skin cells, your hair cells, your thyroid, your adrenal glands, your gastrointestinal tract, all have these microscopic cells that have nutrients that need to be assimilated into them for your body to work right and for you to maintain and stay healthy. So that's the upside of assimilation, is when things are going right, the body assimilates these nutrients pretty easily. But when things go wrong and there's a lack of assimilation, that can lead to nutrient deficiencies. Like, for example, just yesterday I had a patient who came to see me because she's been having some immune problems. Her immune system, she felt, was kind of slow and weak, and she got multiple colds in this most recent flu season, and when she got the colds, they lasted a lot longer than they were before. So there's multiple things that can cause this kind of immune deficiency, but we needed to run some lab work to help us really figure out what her issue was. And what it really came down to was that she was not either getting enough protein or she wasn't assimilating enough protein. And the reason why protein is important for your immune system, because a really important part of your immune system are called immunoglobulins. Immuno just means immune system. Globulin is a protein, and that protein is floating around in the blood, and it maintains its levels by you consuming enough protein. And proteins can come in lots of different forms. So obviously there's animal-based protein, but there's also plant-based proteins that we can get things from, like beans and tofu, and even vegetables have a lower level of protein. Rice has protein. So you need a broad variety of proteins, but you need protein every day. And she had a combination of not only poor assimilation of protein, which we'll go into in just a sec, but she just wasn't consuming enough protein. She was getting a fraction of the amount of protein that she really needed every day. So when we measured her immunoglobulins, they were very, very deficient. And so it's really clear that if you have this kind of immunodeficiency and then you're exposed to things like viruses or bacteria, those viruses are just going to be able to just throw a party and invite all their friends, because your immune system, your security guards, were not there. And so that's what was happening with her. So the fix for her is helping her boost her amount of protein. But not only that, we have to make sure not only is the protein going in, is she consuming enough of the protein, but also that it's going to be assimilated. And to properly assimilate protein, you have to have plenty of hydrochloric acid in your stomach. Your stomach makes this hydrochloric acid, but for a variety of reasons, people can have an insufficient amount of hydrochloric acid. So the protein's not being broken down. The protein is going to stay in its long amino acid chains, and it's not going to break down to the amino acids that we really need for proper assimilation. Also, you need a certain amount of digestive enzymes. Digestive enzymes like protease. They hang out in your gastrointestinal tract and they break down those proteins even further. Even after it passes your mouth, when it gets chewed on, the saliva starts breaking it down, gets in the stomach, the acid starts breaking it down, and then the food starts going through your intestinal tract, and then you have enzymes in there which break down that food even further so that it can be absorbed and then be assimilated into your system. So assimilation is super, super key. But what happens sometimes is some of the things that we're exposed to are unhealthy, and unfortunately we're gonna assimilate some of that stuff as well. And so some of these things are, how you guys doing?
Doing good, aren't you?
Some of those things are chemicals, and these chemicals you're going to be exposed to from certain things that you consume, certain medications, other drugs, recreational drugs, alcohol, sugar, certain foods that are high in chemicals, preservatives. Guess what? That stuff gets assimilated into your system as well. And it's not like something magical happens inside the body. Once these chemicals are inside the body, they can really build up and then eventually reach a tipping point, and it starts to manifest symptoms, and problems start to happen after that. And so you got to really think about the kind of air that you're breathing, the kind of topical things that you're putting on your skin, the foods and the drink that you're consuming. All these things get assimilated into the system. So I mentioned before a couple episodes ago that I recently went to an environmental medicine conference where we learned about the latest information about how the environment influences our health. And one of the things that I've been recommending for patients for a long time, and it actually was brought up by multiple speakers at this conference, was a nonprofit group called EWG.org, Environmental Working Group. They're a nonprofit group that put out these different reports on healthy sources of certain things. Like for example, their most recent report is called the Dirty Dozen. And the Dirty Dozen are the foods that they evaluate looking for pesticide and herbicide residue. And so the foods, it's all produce like fruits and vegetables. The foods that have the most amount of this pesticide and herbicide and fungicide residue, those are the ones that make the Dirty Dozen. And so if you buy nothing else organic, buy the Dirty Dozen organic, because when it's produced organic, it doesn't have all these pesticide residues on it. And these residues you really don't want assimilating into your body. And so they also come out on the flip side. They come out with the Clean 15, and the Clean 15 are the 15 foods, fruits and vegetables that have the lowest amount of residue. So you really don't need to buy those ones organic. And so I'd encourage you to check out their website. They're a nonprofit group. They would really like to have your donation if you can afford something. If not, you can still get the report. I don't have any affiliation with them, but I've used them for a long time, so I like to support them whenever I can. But they came out their latest report on the Dirty Dozen, and there's a lot of foods that stay consistently on the Dirty Dozen year after year, like strawberries and apples and grapes. You really should just be only getting those organic. But a new fruit popped up on the Dirty Dozen, and that's pears. So pears were found to, for whatever reason, I think there was maybe some extra mold or fungus or something that was growing on them, so they used a lot of extra pesticides and fungicides to try and keep that from growing on the pears. But you know, when things are organically farmed, this kind of problem typically doesn't happen, and they have other ways of combating any kind of pesticides that might develop on the fruit. So pears are now something that you need to add to the list of things that you really should be getting organic, so your body is not assimilating all of those residues. So those are just a few things to consider. That's assimilation. So be very mindful of the things that your body is exposed to on your skin, in the air you breathe, and in the foods and things that you consume through your diet, and just anything that goes in. You have to really be aware of what's going in, because it's getting assimilated. It's not like there's some magical process that's happening in the body. All these chemicals could eventually accumulate, and some people are more sensitive to these things than others, but after a certain point, there's always going to be a tipping point, and that could lead to some health problems that I really don't want you to have. So hope you learned something. I'm going to continue on my exercise routine, and so I told you about that first 3-minute workout that I did. In a couple minutes I'm going to do another 3-minute workout. The first one I was alternating with box jumps and burpees. On the next one I'm going to do 10 10 plank jacks, and I'm going to combine that with what am I going to combine that with? Plank jacks and mountain climbers. So I'm going to do 10 mountain climbers, 10 on each leg, and then I'm going to do 10 plank jacks and alternate 10 of each of those for 3 minutes. Be a good workout. So until next time, keep it real.